Yeah, things are going pretty well with Baylor football right now. But if they don't clean this part of their game up, it might take all 3 games to get to bowl eligibility. Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We are going to go over the things that we can see it as a negative. I see it as things Baylor needs to work on in this bye week before taking on the West Virginia Mountaineers. What Baylor basketball really needs to work on before their game Saturday against the Arkansas Razorbacks. And then finally, some big time recognition for one of the easiest players to root for on Baylor's team. Let's call it that. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. The vibes are very high around Baylor Bears football right now, which of course none of us were expecting to say less than a month ago, right? 3-4 weeks ago, we're not thinking that like, hey, beginning of November, vibes are going to be very high with this team and this coach and this offense. Didn't see it coming. But here we are. A couple weeks later, it's 3 wins in a row heading into the bye week before you try to get the monkey off your back. That is Morgantown, West Virginia. It has been pretty good, 35 plus. In each of the last 3 games. They've gone crazy on the ground. The offense is really coming together, and they have also given up 28 plus in each of those 3 games. Defensively, there's been some moments. There's been some things they've done well, but overall, I think we have blissfully ignored some of the problems on defense, and specifically in pass coverage, because the Bears got carved up once again through the air on Saturday, albeit in a winning effort against TCU. But if Sonny Dykes goes for it on that 4th and 2 and TCU keeps moving the ball the way they had been, we might be talking about a different outcome. Now, it did not turn out that way, which something does break in Baylor's favor, which it hadn't done for so long. But it's glaring that this defensive backfield is really having a tough time. And on my way back here to do the post-game show, listening to the Baylor football, the ESPN 1660 post-game show, before he went to the podium, Dave Aranda was talking to J-Mo and JJ Joe, and he mentioned that. He said, we've not been good enough in the defensive backfield. We have not covered well, and we have to work on that in this bye week. And he was kind of emotional about it, not crying, but like kind of angry about it. And he got to the podium afterwards to talk to the assembled media, and that theme came up again. I believe it was Zach Smith of the Trib asked him like, hey, Dave, you guys have been giving up a lot of yards through the air. And Dave Aranda made no mistake about it. He said, this needs to get fixed.
Frustrating would be the deal, in terms of the back end. I think the front 7, we're stopping the run. A lot of these teams, these last couple teams don't really want to run the ball as much. They're more throwing teams. And so we can stop the run probably maybe sooner than maybe some other teams in the back end of the schedule. They're going to want to run. We have to play better coverage-wise. Right now, if we play tight coverage, which would eliminate some of the – there's the pass that was wide open and dropped down the middle. We have a guy that's in the post, came out of the post. If we play tight coverage, then what happens right now is it's ID'd, they throw it up, and then there's a really good chance we're going to DPI it. If we don't have tight coverage, then they find windows, and I have not coached them well enough to where we're savvy enough to play the window. And so it's, if we do this or if we do that, they're going to find the receiver. And so I think pressure-wise, we're able to hit the quarterback a couple times. I think we probably have to be able to find ways where we can pressure and then try to get more coverage on the back end. We're pressuring with single high, and so it was a kind of a do-or-die type thing. I can probably help with that, but we've got to buy to get better. We need to get better. You'd like to win by playing well in the secondary, not win in spite of how you played. And so that's a definite improvement we need to make.
Well, that wasn't really reassuring, right? He said frustrating. And the way he was describing it, it was almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. We want to play them, press coverage, really get up in their face in that tight man, but we're not really good enough at that. And then, we've got the windows in the softer man or sometimes zone coverage, not often, but sometimes. And he says, I haven't coached them well enough to play those windows, which we saw quite a few times in that TCU game. And he mentions the drop there. That was the most glaring part of it, but they gave up a touchdown on a similar play to Besh, where they've got safeties on an island and the safeties don't know where to go. Specifically with that Savion Williams drop, like nobody's near him. The safeties are both looking halves or quarters the other way, and someone's going right down the middle and could have scored on them. And in Besh's case, did score on them. But this was five of the 6 Big 12 games that Baylor has played. They've given up 250 yards passing or more from the starting quarterback. And the last 2 weeks have been 300 plus. Alan Bowman had a really good game. What did he go for? 359, I want to say. And Hoover went for 333. They each threw multiple touchdowns. Like it has not been a glistening effort in pass coverage. But what's helped is that they've scored a lot of points. They scored 59 at Tech. They scored 38 and 37 respectively in the last 2 weeks. That's gonna win you some games, even if you're not playing good pass coverage. But you're looking at a team in West Virginia that is going to want to air it out, no matter who is at quarterback. Garrett Green, doubtful this week. I think they're playing Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. He might not play in that one. He didn't play last week. So either way, they're going to try to pass the ball a lot. They're not a great running team, and that doesn't necessarily favor Baylor. And one little like kind of nugget Easter egg that Dave Aranda threw in there is that they have been successful at times in their passing defense because of their pass rush. And I think you saw a lot of that against Colorado, which Shedeur does throw for 300 plus, and they score 40 plus to get the win. 45, I guess, was the final, or 38-31 the final there. And he obviously had a good game, but they had some success on him. They kept them off the board for a good 2 quarters of that game because they were so good in the pass rush, and Colorado's offensive line is also pretty bad. So Shedeur is great at making plays on the run, but when you're taking out a couple of his options or taking out half the field just because he's scrambling all the time, that is advantage defense. And that's what we've seen. That's how we've seen Baylor be successful in the pass game defensively. That and going up against Isaac Wilson have been just, godsends for them in the pass defense, because it's really not been that good other than that. Because if you take the Big 12 stats just in Big 12 play, they are 15th in the conference in pass defense. A reminder, there's only 16 teams in the Big 12. They're 15th in that, and they're 14th in defensive efficiency in Big 12 games. Oh, not good. It's just been really good that the offense has been so good in that time. And by the way, West Virginia is dipping in their passing offense, especially since Garrett Green has been hurt, which has been 2 weeks now. But they're 15th in passing offense in Big 12 games. Their usage rate has been very high, as in they pass the ball a lot, but they have not been successful the last few weeks. So maybe Baylor can get away with it. But for those of you who are banging on the drum of hey, they're only winning because they're playing bad teams, I don't agree with you, but there's some ammo there with how Baylor has been defending the pass. And again, that's what made the 4th down calls in that TCU game so crucial, was Sonny not going for it on 4th and 2. They could well have scored. They had scored on 4 straight drives up to that point. Baylor could not stop them. And so that might have been a score there. And the 4th down and 9 that Baylor went for and got. Again, if you don't get that, TCU is 1 pass away from getting into field goal range with a timeout. They can use the middle of the field. Best believe they could have picked Baylor apart on a play or two through the air. because they did not cover it well all night. All but I think 2 Big 12 games they have given up either a 100-yard receiver or 2 90-yard receivers in a game, and in one case there was 2 of them where both of those things hit. You had a 100-yard receiver and you had a 98-yard receiver against Iowa State. So it needs to get worked on to finish out this schedule the way people want them to, with 3 straight wins and not have to sweat out the bowl eligibility. But it's got to start now, and it's got to start against West Virginia, a place where, again, we will talk about this a lot over the next 8 days, a place that you have not won. So Baylor football needs to work on defense. So too does Baylor basketball. Big time. We'll tell you what they need to improve on both ends of the floor as they take on Arkansas in a couple days. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, Robinhood. All right, official sponsor, Locked On Podcast Network. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved only for high society. Well, now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms to apply. For specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, our good friends over there at America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, and that app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, give you live play-by-play, get all the info you need on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Well, I might be dumb. Some of you might be dumb too, but we're all smarting still from Baylor's season opening loss to Gonzaga, 101-63 up in Spokane. Did that pun do anything for you? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. It was rough. And I am about a quarter of the way through my second watch, which I'm going to have done before tomorrow for more of a breakdown and preview of Arkansas. And it's still not good at all. It's not good. In fact, it's pretty bad. And I talked about, the two major factors in this game from a Baylor standpoint were, A, they are replacing 4 or 5 starters. These guys have not been around each other long. And it was game number 1 versus a team in Gonzaga that returns 80% of their scoring. And the second factor being they didn't give a good enough effort. And Gonzaga gave an excellent effort from moment 1. And they hit Baylor in the mouth. Baylor got 1 jab in there in the second half. And then Gonzaga knocked them out right after. Like, Gonzaga had them on the ropes. It was almost like this wimpy little jab. And then Gonzaga just knocked them out. Just Rocky Marciano had them on the ropes, did not give up. And that's how you get from, a 25-point lead down to 13 and then back to 27. Okay, so those are the most important factors there. But this one play that I saw, which I won't try to describe too much because I don't think that makes for great podcasting, early in the first half or midway through the first half, exemplified both of those factors at work because Gonzaga got an offensive rebound and did not kick out right away, but got 2 open looks on the perimeter because Baylor just had guys scrambling even more than you normally would on an offensive rebound. And they're in a man defense, but they're guarding air. What we saw on Monday was passive man defense, which is never going to work. So yeah, there's a little miscommunication issues because they haven't played together very much, but passive man defense is not going to help anybody. They're not closing out. They're not doing hard closeouts. And Gonzaga, as they always do under Mark Few, they're moving, they're cutting, they're getting to their spots offensively. And Baylor's just running around, looking behind them, chickens with their heads cut off, not knowing where to go. And where they are going, they're going very slowly. And that part was really disheartening. So obviously, it goes without saying, if you don't have some of that cleaned up by Saturday against Arkansas, Saturday night, you're not going to beat the Hogs. You're not going to beat them. And obviously, second obvious part of this is you can change a bit of that pretty easily. You just got to play harder. So much of this is just going to be playing harder, and you're going to see a team play harder on Saturday than you saw against Gonzaga. That's Scott Drew. That's a proud group. It's not going to be an effort like it was on Monday. They're not going to lay over like they did on Monday. They are going to play hard. Whether that leads to a win and fixes all their defensive deficiencies, I don't know. But it's going to help a heck of a lot. I'll say that. But that communication on the defensive end needs to get better. Because again, this was a coach in Scott Drew who did not go to man-to-man defense for years. It really wasn't until that 2020 team and really not till 2021 when those group of guys, right? Davion, Jared Butler, Maceo Teague, Vital, they said, Coach, you gotta let us play man-to-man. You gotta. We're too good. You've got to let us play man-to-man. We will suffocate teams. And that's exactly what they did. Exactly what they did. They did it in 22 as well, the year after the national championship, when some of those guys had gone. 4 of the 5 starters, where have you heard that before, had gone. And that's what made them one of the best defensive teams in the country, because they were a bunch of dogs who wanted to play man-to-man. And it's been man-to-man ever since. And what you saw was a very passive man-to-man defense on Monday, which is not going to work. Obviously, I've said that word a lot in the segment. I should stop. But certainly, the offense was also a problem against the Zags. Only scoring 63 is not going to win you a lot of games either. And this is for a team that's been top 10 in offense in most of the offensive categories the last couple of years under the direction of John Jacobs. John Jacobs is no longer there. Okay, so now you've got Steve Henson in here, who great player himself in the Big 8 days and has been a part of some really good teams, notably the 2016 Final Four team for Oklahoma with Buddy Hield and the rest. But that was a team that was high volume 3-point shooting. We remember Buddy was obviously a fantastic player. We saw him a couple times in that season. He was pretty darn good. Trust me, for those of you who weren't there. And Steve Henson was behind a lot of that and a lot of that team's success, which didn't obviously end well, but was very good. And that caught my eye because in the write-up after the game, Baylor gave up 25 assists to Gonzaga. And that was the most assists they had given up in a game since 29 in January of 2016 against the Oklahoma Sooners. And I'm thinking, okay, well, at least you've got that guy who orchestrated that 29 assists in a game at the Farrell Center that I was at as a freshman. At least you've got that guy on your bench now. And so let's look at the Steve Henson numbers. He's been at UTSA the last couple of years, where last year they were 57th in pace, 123rd in assist rate, 162nd in offensive rating, and 270th in true shooting percentage. It's not great. It's not great. And Baylor played a lot of ISO ball against Gonzaga. That's not going to be the way they win games. I guarantee you that. They have a lot of talent. They do not have enough to be ISO ball centric. No, almost no team in college basketball can do that. You have to have NBA kind of talent out there to do that. I'm talking like at every position. Baylor's got good talent. They don't have that. No one does. So that concerns me. And then I look back and look at 2016 OU. Remember, a real good offensive team. We remember it. Buddy Hield. Well, Well, a little bit better. They were 48th in offensive rating. They were 89th in pace, 167th in assist percentage. He even coached Trae Young there 2 years later, 2018. Trae Young, right? At one time, heralded as one of the best young point guards in the NBA. They were 240th in assist percentage. 240th for a point guard that went in the top 5. Are we going to be seeing more ISO ball? Because that's not going to work for this. I really don't think it's going to work for this. Baylor can play fast offensively. That's what I was looking at. A Henson team likes to play with pace for the most part. Those middle years at UTSA were better. Trust me. I've looked at the numbers there too. They're better in pace. That could be a key to this team, but isolation in the half court is not going to be. And we talked about it in the offseason, and I don't think they quite figured out yet what their offensive identity is. Because even, some of these 2016 OU numbers better than the UTSA numbers for obvious reasons, the talent mainly being one, but they're not as good as what Baylor's been the last couple of years. We're talking about a top 10 offensive team, 3-point shooting, true shooting percentage, top 20, 30 assist team. It's not there. It's not there in game one, and it's not there by the numbers of the guy who's running their offense. Oof. If this is an ISO team, this could be a long season, but I have a lot of faith in them figuring it out, and obviously expect a much better effort against Arkansas on Saturday. Speaking of effort, it takes a lot of effort to become one of the best walk-ons in the country. Baylor football has one. We'll tell you about him and the award he's up for. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. Hey guys, it's me, Cam. All right. Sometimes those intimate moments happen spontaneously. And we always want to be ready so that we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online. There's no need for those uncomfortable doctor's visits. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/locked-on. That's HIMS.com/locked-on for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/locked-on. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions do apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varied based on product and subscription plan. That's hims.com/locked-on. I do want to mention, because I this was supposed to be part of the show yesterday, but we had pre-recorded with Sydney that Wicker Wednesday. And it was obviously big news earlier this week with women's basketball, as men's basketball was about to tip off in the regular season in that big game against Gonzaga. But obviously we have big time aspirations for the women's team too. And Aaliyah Matharu had transferred from Florida and committed to Baylor earlier this week. This was kind of a quick deal. She had entered the portal last week, and a couple days later is in a Baylor uniform. She was a star at Florida. She has also played at UT, but averaged 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists in that last year with Florida. She has 1 season of eligibility and will be able to start that in the next semester. So once conference season rolls around, Baylor adds basically a 20-point scorer from the SEC. That's not bad. That's like the old adage of when a player comes back from injury in the middle of the season. It's like a trade deadline acquisition, except you don't normally get it in college sports. But that's going to be what Nikki Collin is getting. They kick off their season tonight against Incarnate Word, the blockbuster on the Brazos. And boy, don't you see those names up in lights. Big headline matchup. Baylor, Incarnate Word, truly a blockbuster. Get out to the Foster Pavilion. Get your towels, Raleigh towels. Can't do enough growl towels, as Baylor is wont to call them. But want to talk about Josh Cameron as well. He was announced for as a finalist for the Burlsworth Award yesterday, which is a very prestigious award. It goes to the nation's top former walk-on player. So that does not exclude the guys who earn a scholarship. But if they started their career as a walk-on, they get nominated for that. And obviously named after Brandon Burlsworth, the famous offensive tackle for Arkansas in the 90s, a guy with a really inspiring story. They made a movie about it. I think it was on Netflix. He was a kid who just grew up in Arkansas, loved the Hogs, walked on. No one gave him a chance. He never had any looks out of high school, just kind of an awkward kind of kid. Could have fit in well at Baylor, very faithful young man, and ends up becoming an All-American and one of the top tackles drafted, and unfortunately died in a car accident before his rookie season. And his legacy lives on through that award. There's been some big-time winners. I believe Hunter Renfrow won it. Baker Mayfield won it. The Heisman Trophy and the Burlsworth Award. And so it's a really prestigious honor for Josh Cameron to be put up for, and he deserves it. I mean, again, it's crazy to think watching him now, and I'm sure some other teams or fan bases of teams around the Big 12 this year look up and they say, really, this guy was a walk-on to start with? He was a walk-on, and you'd be remiss to not recognize that when you look at his whole career. This year, 29 receptions, 424 yards, and 7 touchdowns, and been pretty damn good at receiver, been even better on special teams, one of the best punt returners in the country. He'll be up for those awards as well. But you'd be hard-pressed to find another player who started their career as a walk-on that's had a better year than Josh Cameron, and a guy who could even be getting some NFL hype. In fact, David Wetzel was on the Mosley Show this week talking about that. That's going to be something we'll monitor and perhaps play what former coach Wetzel said about that, a guy who helped bring in Josh Cameron from Cedar Park, of a guy who could be playing on Sundays down the line, and that special teams deal has a lot to do with it. But congrats to Josh Cameron. I think he'll have a serious shot at winning that award, and that would be obviously well-deserved and a great accomplishment in his career. That is a prestigious award. When you think about it, it really means a lot. Obviously, it's the Heisman, it's those positional awards. But I'd put the Burlsworth Trophy up with any of those positional ones, because it shows, that this was someone that nobody believed in. I put in air quotes, nobody believed in, because in some cases you're turning down some offers to be a walk-on at a better program. But with Josh Cameron, he didn't have a lot of belief not a lot of belief in Josh Cameron out of high school. And that's really too bad. In fact, his brother graduated from Baylor, and so he wanted Baylor, and he was approached by David Wetzel late in his senior season, comes in as a walk-on, earns a scholarship, and has been one of the Bears' best players this year. So certainly rooting for him in that, and also for the rest of the season. Let me know what you think about that. Should Josh Cameron be winning the Burlsworth Trophy? Drop that down in the comments below. What do you think Baylor needs to work on in this bye week? We might find some other things to talk about before they take the field next Saturday against West Virginia. Drop that down in the comments below, and what Baylor basketball needs to do. What is the number one thing that you think they need to improve on in order to beat Arkansas on Saturday? And will you be there on Saturday? I'm going to be there on Saturday, God willing, to see the Bears and the Hogs. Drew against Calipari. Boy, that's going to be a good one. Drew on a winning streak against Calipari from that win back in 2013, I believe, in Lexington. Ooh, what a time. The place he almost went to. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We are over 3,000 subscribers, which is so awesome. We hit 3,000. We announced that during the post game on Monday, and the next morning it went back to $29.99. So I do think that's actually really funny. So I appreciate you guys listening and being a part of this community. We'll be back here tomorrow. Be sure to like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we drop a video on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We will see you on a Friday on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.